Oh, that's right. It's Monday afternoon. It's 4:07 in the afternoon. And yes, I have Judge Addy, Judge Frank Addy with us here this afternoon. Just having a nice chat, talking about court, talking about drug court, and talking about how we got involved. So I certainly hope you're going to enjoy the show here today. So Judge Frank Addy, nice to have you here today.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Now, I know that you grew up here in Greenwood, and what did you want to be when you were younger? I mean, your parents were in the jewelry business. What did you want to do?
When I was younger, that depends on how far you want to go back. There was a point in time in my life I thought I wanted to be an archaeologist, and then I decided that wasn't gonna be something I really wanted to do. And in high school, I got involved in international issues, like the Model United Nations, and so when I went to USC, I thought that I would train for the international business program that they have there. It's one of the best in the state, actually one of the best in the country. And so I spent 4 years while at college, truthfully trying to gear myself up to entering the Masters of International Business program with the German track. And so I took several years of German language, studied the region, studied international relations, the issues with the European community at the time, and this was before the EU ever actually came into existence. And I was quite certain I was going to get admitted to that program.
I understand that you thought that you really had locks on that, right?
Oh, I had locks on that. I actually had locks on that. People ask me all the time how I got involved in law and how I decided to go to law school and what made me decide to go to law school. And the truth is that I'm entirely an accidental lawyer. I had no intention whatsoever of going to law school. When I applied to actually get into the MIBS program, the admissions lady said that I was a shoo-in, I had the right test scores, the grades were fantastic, Dean's List, President's List, everything was great, and I didn't need to worry, so I submitted everything I was supposed to submit, and friends who were also interested in the German track started getting acceptance letters, and when I didn't receive one or even a rejection letter, I went back to her, asked what the delay was, and she said, well, your packet was incomplete. A professor had failed to send in a letter of recommendation, just a simple one-page form, so they marked the application incomplete, didn't submit it, and by the time I confronted with the professor with his oversight, shall we say, they filled up every track available in that program, and the girl I was seeing at the time suggested that, well, you obviously have no marketable skills after 4 years of college. Why don't you go to law school for a year and see how you like it? And so I followed her advice.
And then you said you hated the first
I hated
year.
it. I hated all 3 years of law school, actually. I did not enjoy. I worry seriously about people who enjoy law school because that they may need to get their heads examined if you really, really, truly enjoyed law school. If you like the practice of law, it's interesting. My friends who truly enjoy the practice of law are the same ones who hated law school. But if you enjoyed law school, odds are you're not going to enjoy practicing law. So I guess I was lucky in that regard. I hated all 3 years. Didn't think I was going to make it. And ultimately, I did graduate.
So you never had any desire to be a jeweler?
I had a desire to be a jeweler, and I respected my father, and I worked alongside my father since the time I was old enough to make a bow and to wrap a present. And he would draft me every Christmas season, which, as you know, is the busiest time of year. And I would either wrap things or clean glass, and as I got older, I would sell watches, and eventually, he'd let me work the cash register and things like that. But I never had his talent for creating things just from a welding torch and a little bit of gold. I could never do that. My brother, who's an obstetrician in Columbia, go figure, he works with his hands. He had that talent. I never had that talent. I couldn't do it. Did I have aspirations to maybe one day do that? Sure.
Right.
Was it really in my skill set? Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah. Well,
truth be known.
Well, he certainly had a fine jewelry store.
Well, he was a neat guy too. He and my grandparents were great people. Loved them all.
Absolutely. So you graduated, and then what did you do?
Well, I came back here to Greenwood. I was fortunate enough to get a job with Towns Jones, the solicitor here, for I think about 25 years plus. And I worked with him for about 3.5 years. And when my father passed away, my grandparents were still alive, so I decided to they encouraged me to try and help them out a little bit at the store while at the same time practicing law on the side. Yeah, unfortunately,
That's tough to do.
It's not easy to do. The
Right.
practice of law, they have it's almost axiomatic that the practice of law is a very jealous mistress. So it's not easy to commit yourself to two different vocations. And after about a year or two, my grandparents thought, well, it makes sense simply to sell the store, so we did. And I continued in a private practice for a short time after we sold the store, and then went into the public defender's office for a couple of years. And I did that for, I believe it was about 2 years, and then the probate judge, our sitting probate judge, Judge Clark, elected to retire and return to the private practice of law, and I was fortunate enough to get the appointment for that job.
What made you decide to go for being a judge?
I felt like, and I don't want to sound like I'm patting myself on the back, but I really have always tried to be fair, and I've always tried to hear both sides out and stay calm. And even when representing clients or representing the state or representing a particular party, the best lawyers are the ones who tell their clients what the other side has in store for them, where the problems to their case
Sure.
are. People go to lawyers, the main thing that a lawyer can give his client, the most valuable thing that a lawyer can give his client is objective advice. That's not based on emotion. It's not based on having been there or been through it. The client comes in, has a set of facts, has a set of circumstances, and what a good lawyer will do is try and get that person through it. Very rarely can the lawyer completely fix everything and get them out of it. More often than not, the best thing that the lawyer is going to be able to do is get that person through that situation, and part of doing that and doing that effectively is being honest, is being candid with the client, and it's being fair, and it's being able to be empathetic to the other side and understand where they're coming from. And I feel like that certainly helps make for a good judge.
Sure. So you were probate judge for
About 10 or 11 years.
10, 11 years?
Right.
And then circuit court judge came up, huh?
It did. It was about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Judge Saunders passed away after a long illness, and he was a very fine gentleman. He died way too young and way too soon, but a very, very fine man. And I ran for his seat and was fortunate enough to be elected to it.
Yeah. So how is it to be on the circuit court judge? You get to travel a lot?
I do. Sometimes a little bit more than I would prefer, but it makes for an exciting job. The best part of the job is you never know what's going to happen from one day to the next. You come in on a Monday morning of general sessions or criminal court, and you could be trying, that afternoon you could be trying something as simple as a stolen car case to something as complex as a murder case. Very often you simply don't know when you arrive at court that morning what is going to happen.
So you have no pre-information?
Sometimes you do. If it's a big case, if it's a murder case, usually they'll give you a heads up ahead of time. But more often than not, it's only maybe 2 or 3 days before you're supposed to start that term. Understand that if I'm holding court next week, I'll be I'll be out of the circuit about 2 hours away for most of the week, and when I'm there, I'm not going to have a good ability to communicate with the lawyers on the cases that I'm going to have after that week in York. So when I come back here to the 8th Circuit, we've got common pleas non-jury cases where we put pretty much 20 cases on the docket each day from all 4 counties, and we'll see what happens. I will simply show up on Monday morning. My secretary will have a nice list ready for me, and she's incredibly talented and keeps me in line, keeps me straight very well. So does my law clerk. And it's good to have them working with me, because I'll show up.
I guess on the other corner you got your wife, right?
Yeah, you got my wife. Hey, that's she does not work for me.
Right.
Let me make that perfectly clear in case she's listening.
Everybody is keeping everybody straight.
Everybody's keeping everybody straight, and her job is definitely to keep me straight. So I've got Kelly at home that keeps me straight there, and Fred back at the office that keeps me straight there. And between the two of them, I'm on top of it.
You're straight down the middle,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what do you think it takes to be a really good judge?
I really think just to be able to listen and understand, not just hear, but understand the emotion that's sometimes being conveyed to you. Try and understand what the root cause of the problem is and get to that. The ability to listen and understand where someone is coming from, I think, are the two most important aspects of being a good judge. Every lawyer knows the law. The judges know the law. There are certain circumstances, however, where the law doesn't give you much in the way of guidance, and you have to, again, listen and work your way through the law and the facts. And if you are patient and attentive and diligent in your responsibilities, ultimately you will get a good decision, or at least a decision that might be justifiable. Now, it might not be the correct decision. That's the great thing about our system. If I'm wrong, appeal me. The Supreme Court or the Court of Appeals or somebody else will say I was wrong, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. If I'm not right, if I have made a wrong decision, I want somebody to correct that. More often than not, though, I've found that if you are patient, if you're attentive, if you take the time to make a good decision, to research the law, the decision that you ultimately reach is the right one. At least 9 times out of 10.
9 times out of 10, well, you can't beat that. Hey, I am Ann Eller. I am here with Judge Frank Addy, and we're going to hear a quick word from our sponsors. If you want to give us a call, got a question or a comment, don't hesitate to pick up that phone, 229-7984. That's 229-7984. Oh, that's right. We're right back here at Sharp Passes Gallery. This is the Froggy Ann Eller today. Hopefully we'll be better by tomorrow, but I do want you to know that earlier this afternoon I had an interview, a pre-taped interview with Senator Lindsey Graham. We'll be playing that for you probably in the morning. It was a really good interview about a lot of different issues, so you'll have to stay tuned to hear more about that. But right now we are here live with Judge Frank Addy, and of course he's on the circuit court judge. And you know, one of the things that I think that made me want to talk to you and sit down to talk to you was the fact that I was selected for jury duty and had to come to your court.
Lucky you.
Yes, well, and I was very impressed with the way you handled the jury, the jurors, because I think you know, there was a lot of nervousness. A lot of people didn't want to be there, and I thought that you were very dignified with them, and you also gave them the opportunity, if they needed to speak to you in private, they could. Fortunately, you didn't have to hear any horror stories that day, but still, I thought that was really great.
I appreciate that. I thank you for that. I know that court can be a very intimidating place to come to if you're a juror. It can certainly be intimidating if you understand, Ann, nobody really wants to come to court. If you're coming to court, it means something bad has happened to you. Either you've been in a car wreck and you're trying to get compensation for that wreck, so you're either suing, or you've been sued, or you've been charged with a crime, or you've been a victim of a crime, or in your case, you were summoned and didn't get a chance to object to coming to court. There's an old adage that court's the last place that the government can actually force you to go to, and that's probably right. And they can summon you and force you to be a juror. They can't make you do anything else. But it's very intimidating. It can be very nerve-wracking for people who aren't there every day like I and the other court personnel are. It's easy to forget how apprehensive a person can be when they come into that courtroom, and I'd like to believe that most judges try to ease whatever anxiety people are feeling when they come in, and to the extent that I can do that by making it easier on the jurors and the other people who come in, hey, I'm happy to do that. I think most judges hopefully would be. Absolutely.
Well, you were very courteous and very understanding, so I thought that was terrific. Now, when you deal with a jury, how does that play into how everything works together? I mean, the jury makes a decision. I presume you're following along on this too. Have you ever felt that the jury made a wrong decision?
I have tried. I try cases on a weekly basis, and only once have I set aside a jury's verdict, and that was a case about 2 years ago. It was only a few months after I'd been on the bench, and it was a civil case where I could not for the life of me figure out the math. And in that case, the question of automobile coverage and automobile insurance got interjected into that trial. And ultimately, when I got the verdict, I concluded that the jury had to have figured or had to have thought that the person was covered by some kind of insurance or health insurance, and that's a big no-no. Those kind of issues aren't allowed. The jury's not privy to those kinds of issues, and for good reason. Some people have insurance, some people don't, and it's truthfully not relevant or germane to any issue involved in the case whether or not a person is covered by liability insurance or not, or medical insurance if the case concerns a personal injury action and maybe they're looking for subrogation or something like that. So I did grant a new trial in that case. They retried that case, and that verdict stood. So, but that's the only time that I've ever been involved with a jury trial where I have granted a new trial or where I thought it was proper. Even in cases where I have tried cases myself, I've always understood why the jury did what they did. Might not have agreed with it, but I could certainly understand it and figure out how they got to the place they got to.
Now, well, one of my questions to you would be, I actually was sitting next to somebody there in the jury pool, and do you remember people, because she was sure that you would remember a case that had been tried, and she was sure that you'd have something to say to her, and in the end you didn't, and whether it was just good manners on your part, but do people stand out to you as they come back around sometimes? Not as a being in a jury pool, being on a case, and this type of thing.
Sometimes they do. I see so many people. I will see in the course of any one day, if we're doing criminal court, I will probably meet 50 to 60 new people during the course of that day. And I'm really good, generally, as a general rule, I'm very good with faces, and I'm bad with names. And if I've sat in a courtroom trying a case with one individual for 2 or 3 days, I will remember that person, I will remember their face, and odds are I'm going to remember their name. If it's a shorter trial, because we're always trying cases, it seems like we're at least once a week I'm going to have a trial if we're doing a general sessions term or a common pleas term. So over the course of the 48 weeks that we would be holding court or doing jury terms, that's 48 different cases. That's a lot of folks to remember. I do try to remember people, but
Characters,
certainly characters. And you do criminal stuff long enough, sometimes the same people come in front of you over and over again for the same silly little petty thing, and those characters you get to know.
How about some of the lawyers that you deal with? Can you sometimes, after you've dealt with a lawyer across the bench there and everything, can you tell the direction he's going to try to take the case before he's even got up to start talking?
Sometimes. Let me say this, though. We are really lucky in Greenwood and in the 8th Circuit in general, and that we have some of the best lawyers I think that the state of South Carolina could ever hope to have.
And you can say that because?
I can say that because I have worked with these people, and I've gone to other counties, and the lawyers that we have in Greenwood and in the 8th Circuit are diligent. They are above board, and they are not looking to file frivolous cases or waste my time or their time. Understand that when a lawyer takes a case, sometimes they get paid, sometimes they don't. It really depends on the nature of the case. Personal injury actions, more often than not, the lawyer is going to be footing the bill for the entire case until the case is resolved. So it's very rare for a lawyer to bring a garbage, personal injury case.
Sure. Because
they're putting their own money on the line every time they do it. Domestic actions, you want to try and get a resolution with the parties quickly. You don't want to try and drag that out. And unfortunately, in other parts of the state, I have seen where lawyers are less than scrupulous and will foment more tension than is necessary, simply so that perhaps the bill gets bigger or the case gets dragged out. I haven't seen that here locally, personally. I simply have not seen that.
That's good to hear. Hey, I'm here with Judge Frank Addy. We are going to hear South Carolina news and a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Hey, if you've got a question, don't hesitate to give us a call, 229-7984.
Are you a pirate or a pack rat? Do you have a vacation of a lifetime sitting in the attic? Or a college tuition hung on a wall? Or is a fabulous retirement hidden in your jewelry box? Bring those items to Sharp Facets Gallery. We can establish value and buy from you or sell for you. And so ends another chapter at Sharp Facets Gallery, 72 Bypass, and on the web, sharpfacets.com.
So what do you think about them approving marijuana out there in Colorado?
That's a political decision. I can't touch that with a 10-foot pole. That's for the people of Colorado to decide.
Yeah, but I mean, they did approve it. But I mean, you know, I wonder how it would be to have cases. You know, they've been all talking about whether the state and the federal law, which law.
The feds trump.
Right.
The feds trump always.
But
So.
will they? Oh, that's right. We're right back here at Sharp Facets Gallery this afternoon with the Croker and Eller and Judge Frank Addy here this afternoon. Gosh, we've got so much to talk about in so little time. You know, Frank, you were telling me about having 46 judges in the state, and they're getting ready to add 3 more.
We are. They passed a law last year, and it's a very fortunate thing. It's the first expansion of the judiciary on the circuit and the family court level that we've enjoyed in, I think, the last 10 years. And a lot of what was driving the legislature's decision to extend the judiciary, expand the judiciary, is just the sheer caseload among the circuit and the family court judges. Statistically speaking, we have the worst caseload in the entire United States. I don't have the numbers.
Come on now.
It's the worst. It is the worst. We're at the bottom of the barrel. I'll tell you some good news in a moment, but we're at the bottom of the barrel in terms of cases per judge. It's around 5,000 and I want to say 60 case filings per year per judge in this state. And that's an amazing burden when you consider that the next highest state on the list is North Carolina with roughly 3,700 filings per judge. I think Massachusetts actually has the least. It's something like 120 case filings per judge per year.
120?
120. I want to say it's 120. It could be 220. I'm not quite certain.
I think they have too many judges.
They may have too many judges. The benefit in Massachusetts, though, is that one judge can follow a case from beginning to end. And we simply don't have that luxury here in South Carolina.
So what happens?
Well, cases get old. They stick around for too long, especially like I was mentioning a minute ago. If you know, there are times that a case has to be continued. Somebody gets sick, a witness is unavailable. And that's infuriating and frustrating for the parties, regardless of whether
another judge would have to take up the case.
Another judge has to take up the case. Another judge comes in and is learning about the case from scratch on day one, like I was mentioning a minute ago. And so that's one of the inefficiencies in the system that fortunately is being addressed, at least in a small way. We will be getting 3 new circuit judges in the spring. We will be getting 6 new family court judges. And especially on the family court side, that's a major concern. The one bright spot that I did want to mention to you, and it's a little-known statistic, but it's something I think everyone in South Carolina should be very proud about. The American Bar Association recently did a survey in terms of civics knowledge, and you hear these horror stories about general knowledge of civics and things like that. People are of the belief that the 3 major branches of government in this state are Republican, Democrat, and Independent. And they don't realize it's President, Congress, and Judiciary. But in South Carolina, we actually ranked first of all 50 states, according to this ABA survey, in general civics knowledge, which is something that has not been, nobody's really crowed about that. But if our schools are doing something right if they're teaching civics, or at least our parents are doing something right if they're teaching civics. And this goes back to Justice Sandra Day O'Connor's program, the iCivics program, which is actually available online, to try and help teach kids more in the way of civics than they've been getting in classrooms throughout the country. At least they're getting it here in South Carolina. At least they know what the job of a judge is, what the job of a president or a governor is, what the job of Congress is, according to those statistics. So that's nice.
Well, the only thing I do have to say is that, and this will depress you when I tell you this, but on Friday afternoon I do the really stupid, really unbelievable, I can't believe you asked that question show. It's called Giveaway Friday. And I asked what the capital of South Carolina was, and nobody knew the first week.
They didn't know the capital of South Carolina. I need to start tuning into your show. I'm sorry.
There you go.
Well, I have friends in Charleston, and they'll tell you quite quickly that Charleston is the unofficial capital of the state. But those folks down there have a different way of looking at things sometimes. So.
Absolutely. But I was mortified on that one. But
that's pretty sad.
That is pretty sad. But anyways, Moving along here, we did have a question come in. Well, before we leave this, now you were telling me about 70%, trying to get 70% of the cases tried in a year?
Right. It's a benchmark that's been set by our Chief Justice, Jean Toll, and the objective that she has set is to try and get 70% of cases tried within 1 year of the filing. And that's another thing that's good about the 8th Circuit, because we are close to meeting that 70% goal. We haven't, no county has gotten there, no circuit in the state has achieved that goal yet, and I think the goal has only been on the books or only been issued by judicial order for about 2 years, 2.5 years now. But we do move cases fairly quickly, and again, that's not only because of anything that I'm doing in particular. Certainly I try and pay attention to the docket. I try and move cases as fast as I can, but I think that's really more of a testament to the professionalism of the local bar here, that they are able to work cases out, get things resolved, be reasonable with each other, and get the parties on with their lives. I'm hoping that's the situation. I believe that's what the case is.
Absolutely. So that's some good news. Now, one of a question that just did come in from Betty Oot. She says, "Are you still doing the drug court?" She thought that was one of the best things that Jerry Peace and his office started.
I am still doing the drug court, and we began that, I want to say, in 2008 when I was the probate judge, and both the solicitor and I at the time, my interest was I was seeing a lot of chemical dependency commitments coming through the probate court, and I felt that there was a way to better address the drug abuse in the community, and the solicitor agreed with me, and I agreed with him, and we put together the program, which has changed a lot of lives, and I think it is a very, very positive program. It's intensive. It's not like probation where you just show up once a month and sign your name in a book and maybe pay your supervision fees and whatever restitution, and they check to make sure you haven't been arrested or used drugs. But this is a case where I see the individuals on a weekly basis. We try to build up the whole person. Every individual is different. Every individual is going to have different and unique needs. And unless you're seeing that person frequently, you're not going to be in tune with what those needs are. Sometimes it's, hey, he needs employment as well as he's hooked on drugs. He needs further education. He needs help with voc rehab. There are issues in his family life or her family life. And so there are a lot of different things that go together to try and get this person back on the right track and just show them the right way. It's not just hammering them with a drug test or a stiff prison sentence or a stiff jail sentence every time they fail the drug test. But the true benefit of the program is that if you look at the literature dealing with addiction, the hardest thing for an addict is those 2 or 3 days after they're no longer able to get the drug. So if they're in a program where they know that if they test positive on Monday for using drugs over the weekend, and then they're going to see me on Tuesday, that means they're going to be in jail from Tuesday through that Friday, and they will then go through that withdrawal period while they're in jail, and then maybe they'll get back out on Saturday. But it's almost a Pavlovian type of response. You do that often enough and a few times, and it gets through to the person that, hey, there's an immediate consequence for my drug use. An immediate consequence. Not something that's going to happen 4 months down the road when the probation office ultimately violates me, but something that's going to be immediate and it's going to be unpleasant. That's a pretty good carrot sort of stick approach to use in these kinds of situations. And more importantly, it works.
Absolutely. Now, there has been talk of expanding that program. Is that look like that's going to be possible?
I'm very hopeful that it will. I have not had an opportunity since the election to meet with our new solicitor, and I do believe that is something that hopefully he is receptive to. I want to say that he mentioned during the campaign that that's one thing that he'd like to see happen, is expand the drug court program. I know originally he was from Lexington, and they have a very vibrant program over there that is extremely effective, and to the extent that we can expand our program or include other individuals, because let's face it, 90% of the crimes that are being committed out there are committed either because someone's trying to feed a drug habit or they're drunk. They've had way too much to drink. So that's about 90% of the crime.
Sure.
Very rarely nowadays do we see the criminal genius, the snidely whiplash that twirls the mustache because he's trying to figure out some great way to rob the bank, and do it professionally. I've only represented one person like that, as a matter of fact, in my entire career, and I represented a lot of people. That only one professional thief that I ever represent. An interesting gentleman. But most of what's driving the crime out there is drug related, unfortunately. Yeah, and I think maybe the deeper question for another show, maybe you can get a psychologist or a psychiatrist in here. What is it about our society that causes us to crave that kind of thing so frequently? And I don't have the answer. No. It's a problem.
Many different things, yeah.
Yeah, it is, and maybe it's the instant gratification of our society. I don't know, but you need to get a psychiatrist in here, or a psychologist, to try to figure that one out, please.
All right, well, we will do it. And we do also need to mention you do this pro bono.
Right. I don't get paid extra for it, but to the extent that I can eliminate one or two extra cases from coming up on the Journal Sessions docket by trying to help somebody who's got a drug problem, hey, that's less work. It's less work for me, and it's probably the right thing to do anyway. So
I think that's commendable. Hey, I'm here with Judge Frank Addy. If you've got a question, give us a call, 229-7984. That's 229-7984. We'll be, that's right, we are right back here at Sharp Facets Gallery. You know, one of the things that I don't think a lot of people understand is that drug court is very intense. And why don't we just tell people a little bit about what they go through to get in, number one, to get into it, and what is the result if you make it successfully through it all the way?
Well, we actually have two different types of phases, or two different tracks for drug court. What a person has to do is, first of all, they have to plead guilty in order to get into drug court. And in one track, I will leave the sentence questionable. It's not certain what I will give them. In the other track, I will give them a definite sentence, like 10 years if you end up failing out. Once they complete the program, which typically lasts between a year to a year and a half, and against that period of time is evidence-based. If you can stay off of drugs for a year, odds are 95% you're good for the rest of your life. You're not going to touch them again. But if you stay off drugs for the prescribed period of time, once you're released or graduated from the program, the charges completely come off your record, totally wiped clean, totally wiped away. Nobody ever has to know that it happened. And so that's a major draw, especially for younger kids who perhaps have found themselves in a very addictive situation. And nowadays it seems like everyone checks criminal records, and that's a major albatross for somebody who's otherwise young, otherwise can be successful, otherwise can be incredibly productive. It's something that can really hold a person back if that youthful indiscretion when one was 18 all of a sudden jumps up when they're 25 and they have a chance for a true opportunity, a real opportunity for a great job, and it prevents them from getting that job. And so that is something that's good about the program. But we also, drug testing is there's no definite day. You call in that morning, and if the color is green and you're assigned green, you got to report for a drug test that day. If you fail that drug test, I'm going to hear about it immediately. You will probably spend a couple of days in jail for the first time, just so that, like I said a moment ago, you experience those negative withdrawal symptoms. The second time might be a little bit longer. Third time, we might be talking about inpatient rehab at Morris Village or some other facility at that point. You have to maintain employment. You have to find a job. If you can't get a job, you'll end up doing community service. You'll do that so long as you don't have a job. And again, what we're trying to address here is not just the addiction. It's whatever the root cause of that addiction was, and that's what we're trying to truly get at and create a whole person, or help define a person become a whole person, rather.
Sure, absolutely. So it's a great program, and expanding it would be a good thing. Now, one of the things you were telling me about Greenwood is we have only one courtroom.
That's right, and that's another problem that is unique to, I'm not going to say the smaller counties, because Greenwood, I think metropolitanly, is 10th largest in the state, but certainly your more traditionally rural counties, when they built the courthouse, they would have one courtroom. So we have one courtroom dedicated for general sessions or common pleas. In larger counties such as Greenville, Spartanburg, even Rock Hill or Columbia, Charleston, they'll have multiple courtrooms with maybe 3 or 4 judges all holding court, doing different types of court during the course of a single week. And that helps them move cases a lot faster sometimes than it seems like we do down here. Statistically speaking, though, we're doing great. We're doing very well compared to the rest of the state. But the single courtroom is that is a problem logistically. We cannot hold common pleas and general sessions at the same time. We can't do both civil and criminal at the same time like we can in Greenville. Plus, we only have 2 judges for the 4 counties here in the 8th Circuit. There is a person out of Lawrence who did make it through screening for one of those at-large seats that I was speaking about, so he may very well be a 3rd judge who gets added into the mix here, which would be beneficial.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that you brought up when we were jurors down there, that you thought it would be nice if people would come back into the courtroom for, to watch court cases. And it's true. Back in the old days, everybody used to go to court really for the entertainment factor.
Right. There was entertainment value to that, especially in the days of radio. And we've certainly gotten away from that. People used to... You would hear when people would come to court and they would hear the orations and they would want to hear the lawyers talk and drone on for hours, and they found it entertaining. And of course, back then communities were also much smaller, and there was a natural curiosity about John Smith's case and what was it that John Smith did and what's the evidence against John Smith. Did he really kill his wife or something like that? There was the rumor mill circulated and people wanted to find out what the true scoop was, so they naturally went down to the courthouse. Nowadays, I feel like people get a misimpression of what court is like from what they see on the television shows. CSI, you had mentioned a minute ago, being a prime example. The movies, I love My Cousin Vinny. It's one of my favorite movies. Never had a case like that before, probably never will. Same for A Few Good Men. Great movie, love it.
Right.
Nothing like the actual practice law.
Okay, but how about those cases where they have Judge so-and-so on in the afternoon?
Oh, Judge Judy, yeah.
Yeah, Judge Judy, and there's another judge
right.
there, yeah.
I'm working, so I really don't get to see those. I imagine that might be a lot like what I do sometimes, but that's probably small claims court, and a lot of that's, of course, scripted for entertainment value. How much that resembles what I do, I'm sure if there are people yelling and screaming and the judge interrupting, that's not how I do it, at least. I can only speak for myself.
But you did think it would be nice if more people came out.
Just for the educational value. And we do have school groups that come in, and that's, I think, good for the kids and good for the young people. And we have a lot of homeschool kids who will show up with their parents, and they will get that firsthand view of the courtroom, and I love it when they do. I'll invite them back. They can see my chambers. We'll take a break, and I'll talk to them, and that's with a homeschool group or a regular type school group. But I think it's beneficial for the kids, and I think it's necessary that we don't have this mysterious criminal justice system that exists behind closed doors in some sort of a star chamber. It's open court. Anyone can walk in. Anyone can see what's going on, and a lot of people who criticize, I think, who criticize juries, who criticize judges, who criticize the system, if they actually took the time to come down there and see that, yes, we are working, and that, yes, sometimes this takes time, and learn what our grandparents knew from attending court just out of curiosity and for entertainment value, I don't know that they would be quite as critical as perhaps they are.
Absolutely. Well, one of the questions I did want to ask you here at the very end is, what about this? What about bringing a sentence down and the guidelines that you have to work within? Do you think they're appropriate for today, or do you think you need more variety in it, or what do you think?
Well, one thing that they have done in the last 2 years was sentencing reform in South Carolina, because, and this was largely driven with the crisis with the budget in this state. It became quite evident 2 things. First, we couldn't continue to lock people up for the length that we had been locking them up, and second of all, it was counterproductive. It was not giving the citizens any sort of bang for the buck. It's expensive to put a person in prison for a long, long time, and prison real estate, that prison cell, is probably the most valuable real estate that the state owns. So it really needs to be reserved for people who are dangerous, who cannot be trusted to live among us. At least that's my personal judicial philosophy. Or in the alternative, people who genuinely show a disdain for society or have simply been in trouble over and over and over again and have not gotten their act together for whatever reason. And I think I have somewhat of a reputation of being someone who listens, but I can be a little bit harder on folks who have had 2 or 3 chances to prove themselves and still haven't figured out a way to get it right. As far as the sentences are concerned, when they took a look at it, they realized that we need to get rid of these mandatory minimums and start giving judges discretion again. And I think that was a very beneficial thing that the legislature chose to do 2 years ago in this state, is return a lot of the discretion to the trial bench. The sentencing range of 0 to 20 years gives me a great deal of discretion to fashion something that's appropriate under the circumstances. Am I going to treat an 18-year-old kid who's never been in trouble with the law before, who otherwise is a good student, tries hard, does well most of the time, am I going to treat him the same way as a guy who's 45 years of age, who commits the exact same crime, who has been in and out of the system his whole life? No. The 45-year-old knows better. The 18-year-old can be salvaged. And so there needs to be a way for a judge to make those allowances, to make those adjustments, even though the crime's identical, perhaps.
Absolutely. This is WCRS right here in Greenwood, South Carolina. Well, Judge Addy, I certainly have enjoyed having you here today. I certainly hope sometime you'll come back and we'll talk some more.
I've enjoyed being here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. This is WCRS right here in Greenwood. Bye-bye, everybody. I'll be back in the morning. Don't you go away.